if learning new things is the standard, you would have humans that are cut out from that. Epic. You got 30 minutes with us tonight. That is a fair amount of time, if not more than fair. What up, buddy?
So I wanted to discuss the ethics of AI specifically. So
Go
I
for
believe
it.
it is unethical if we ever get to the point where we can give AI something akin to free will or consciousness to terminate it. The reason why is because, do you know Ludwig Wittgenstein?
No, not specifically.
There's a philosopher named Ludwig Wittgenstein who's a philosopher of language. Basically, the way he wrote a lot about the philosophy of language. One of his big ideas was the family resemblance theory. So his idea was there's no such thing as an essential attribute that defines something, but rather a combination of attributes. For instance, what is an orange? Well, an orange is both orange, a fruit, and round generally, but there's some things that are orange, round, and fruit that are not necessarily oranges, and not all oranges hold those exact qualities. So he holds a very anti-essentialist view of definitions, and so how we define things is only to the extent of the context and like how they sort of resemble other things, and that amalgamation of attributes is what defines something. So in the reason why this relates to the topic of AI is because currently the way we define life is generally a combination of an organic thing that it has certain attributes that we've defined. There's like several attributes of life, and one attribute that we've only given to life is the idea of free will or consciousness. So if we ever created an AI with free will or consciousness, although it would not have the sort of essential or the essential things that people would give to life, like say being made organically, etc., in the context of saying because we don't define things by some essential attribute by the utility of that definition, because generally the way we define free will and consciousness, if we could have something to where a free will or consciousness did exist in a non-organic thing like AI, to the extent we believe that it's immoral to terminate conscious things because you're preventing them from living or thinking to their fullest. That's why I believe it's unethical to terminate an AI. Even though it would not be an organic human life, it would still be terminating something with independent thoughts, and I believe that to be immoral.
So wait. So do you think that terminating AI is immoral, or the
If
existence
they
of
had
AI?
consciousness, I believe if we had got to the point where an AI had consciousness or free will, I would believe it would be immoral to terminate it.
Be immoral to terminate it. If it got to that
Yes.
point, I would probably agree with you. I think that consciousness and like not necessarily consciousness by itself, but advanced consciousness is where morality is based, right? So no other animal on earth has the advanced
Yeah.
consciousness that humans have. However, on the same note, different animals have different levels of consciousness. And there are some that are very close to human level. So I think that it is less moral to, for example, hunt those animals. But when you get to the same level that humans have, so like when something gets to the same level of humanity in terms of consciousness, that's when it becomes immoral to terminate it. So I have a question for you though. Building off
Yeah.
of that, considering I think that we both agree on that. What do you think should be done if an AI reaches the point of like human or above level of
We'd have to
consciousness?
create some sort of legal system where we'd recognize some level of its rights. And the only time it would be ethical to terminate it is in self-defense, because I believe terminating human life in self-defense is ethical. It's the idea of self-defense in all non-pacifist philosophy. I'm not a pacifist, is moral. So I would not believe it would ever be ethical to terminate it unless it is in self-defense. And if the way we do self-defense would be terminating. So if an AI got to the point where it could even like have the work to kill humans, for instance, I would believe if there's a potential that they're gonna, or high potential they're gonna kill humans, it would be ethical to terminate in self-defense only.
So you said that they would have like some level of legal protections. Do you think that they should be lower than that of humans?
I mean, what do you mean lower? Like, I mean,
Like less
how?
protections? Do you think there should be less protections for AI than humans?
Not necessarily. I just mean how we interact with AI would be different than how we interact with humans, assuming it's in different forms. Like, an AI might not be able to own property because it can't hold things, right? But that doesn't mean theoretically if an AI could own property, it shouldn't be allowed to. So it's not that it should have lesser more rights, but it's just how like what form AI it is.
So let's do a theoretical so we can like have like a real sort of conversation surrounding this, like make it more real. Let's say that there is a robot that can essentially do everything that a human can do, right? It can write, it has like the vision aspect to be able to see, it can walk around, it can do all of that. It can basically function as a human. And it is powered by AI. Do you think it should have the exact same rights as a human?
Yeah.
So it should be able to, for example, own property, become a landlord, do all that shit.
Yeah, because as
Do
I
you
said,
think
things are only defined in their context. Just because it's not essentially organic doesn't mean it doesn't deserve rights. Because as I said, rights or anything really is only defined by its context. And if in every context it acts like a human, there's no reason why we should treat it any different than a human.
honestly, in large part, I'd probably agree with you here. I think that some of the difference comes in the fact that AI only has the intelligence and to an extent consciousness that we give it, right? So you have AIs like ChatGPT
Yeah,
that
ChatGPT.
has built-in constraints, and ChatGPT, for example, if I'm talking about the correct one, took in information from like a 2-year time period on the internet, right? So it doesn't actually continuously take in information. It took in this period of information and it runs off of that.
Yeah, but that's because we
And
haven't gotten to AI with full consciousness yet. So like
we
yes.
have, Google has, according to whistleblowers, Google has. But like, so let's say I'm gonna give you another
Technically, it has full
theoretical.
consciousness. It can't hear, see, learn new information. It can only do what humans tell it. So, no,
Suppose well, so supposedly Google's AI that they have kind of hidden has that. Supposedly from what I've heard, it is in physical form and it has consciousness and it has asked
I'm
for
a little
rights.
skeptical about that claim, but if that's the case, then yeah, we're gonna have to find a way that we deal with that in society, and I do believe it would be unethical to terminate that AI. So yeah, I'm skeptical they might be making that up just for clicks. But if I mean that's real, then yeah, we're gonna have to find a way to give it some sort of rights that humans would have.
The reason I brought this up was because of the fact that I wanted to give you some more hypotheticals just to see if there was a difference in your mind for these.
Okay.
So I'm gonna give you 2 different, and you're gonna say if they should have equal rights or more for one of them, whatever the fuck. Okay.
Well, more or less, right? Something can have different rights without being more or less. Yeah, it's not more or less. It's different types of rights. I mean, more or less is kind of loaded language, but okay.
We'll go once you have the example. Okay.
Okay.
So let's say you have one AI in physical form. These 2 AIs have the same amount of rights. So like let's say they're in a fully functional robot type being. They both have full consciousness. One has knowledge from a specific time period. So let's say the last 2 years from now. It only can take in knowledge from the last 2 years. It cannot take in future knowledge, and it cannot continue to advance. It has the consciousness to say like I deserve rights, like I should be equal to human beings. Like it has that sort of expression. And then you have one that can continuously take in new knowledge. Do you think they should have the same amount of rights?
No, because I would not classify temporary memory without the ability to take in new information as full consciousness. Anything that can learn new information has the ability to make conscious, free decisions more, and therefore would have more rights. But again, more or less rights is pretty subjective.
Okay. Going off of that, someone who was kidnapped and not exposed to the external world for, let's say, 10 years, should they still have the same rights as every other human?
Yes, because they can learn, interact, and see things in the world, and yeah.
But they can learn and interact almost at a lesser level than that first AI that I told you about, right? Like when they're released, they would have a lesser level of consciousness.
They'd have less memory. They would have more consciousness.
Why?
They would have the ability to learn new things. I consider learning new things to be the essence of consciousness, whereas they would have less memory. So I don't think it should be determined by memory, but rather consciousness, which are not the same thing.
So is your kind of standpoint, or like one of your standpoints for consciousness being like the ability to learn things in the future?
Yes.
Okay. That's not something you could ever legislate on. I'm just saying. I do
If-
understand your
if
point, and I probably agree with your
someone only
point.
had 2-year memory, I don't see how that's. Yeah, I don't really see like how would how would they be able to own property or buy new property if they don't even know that property exists?
You could say the same thing about someone who is, for example, again, going back to the kind of kidnapping thing, there are people who spent their entire life imprisoned, kidnapped, not like legal prison, but kidnapped. They have never seen the outside world. They have never interacted with someone outside of their family. And those interactions are still not like actual interactions, if you know what I mean. The issue I hold is if we're looking at a foreseeable future sort of thing, because that's what the law would actually dictate on, would probably be like foreseeable future.
What type of ethics? I mean, what should the law be? I mean, that's gonna require a lot of legal work. I'm not a lawyer, but yeah.
When you're talking rights, you have to include the law in some sense, right? So it has to be in some sense realistic. Ethically, I know what you're talking about, but I kind of want to bring this into a more real world conversation
Yeah,
because
if someone
ethics.
does not, if someone lived their entire life in a cave or whatever, if they're still living, then yeah, they could learn about new property. They could learn and interact with the world. So, no, I mean, if someone can't learn any new things, how do you expect them to have rights?
The point that I'm trying to make here is that I'm bringing this back into real world. So you would have to have some sort of foreseeable situation standard. That would be the standard for example, a law based on what rights a being would have. And if the foreseeable future for someone who has been imprisoned in terms of a kidnapping situation that has been imprisoned for their entire life, and they are now, say, 21, and they are still imprisoned, the foreseeable future is that they continue to be imprisoned and continue to not have access to new information.
What do you mean? If they were released, they do have no information.
But that's not the foreseeable future of the situation.
What do you mean foreseeable future? What are you even talking about?
So foreseeable future is what is likely to happen, basically. So if someone has,
why would they have rights? What's the point? If they're not released, what's the purpose of them having property rights? They should have the theoretical property rights, but if they're not released, then what's your point here?
My point here is exactly what you just said. The foreseeable future is that they are not released, that they do not have access to new information in the world. At that point, wait, let me land. At that point, if your rights are dictated based upon the ability to learn new information, if you in the foreseeable future will not be able to learn new information, even if you are a human, do you thus not have rights? And thus, for example, you would then end up having the rights basically of an animal, to where you being kidnapped and imprisoned is ethical.
With an animal, no, because
or is legal.
If you were released, you'd have the same rights as humans. So no.
But again, that is not the foreseeable future. We're talking about rights here.
Well, yes, in the cave they would have the same rights as humans. What they would do with that rights, I don't know, but they would have the same rights as humans. If in the cave they had some weird legal system somehow that the tribe makes that says they can own things, they would still have the same rights that other humans have. So yes, they would still have the same rights.
So what I'm saying, right? Because again, like I said, I agree with you.
Hypothetical, and I said they would have the same rights because they could learn new things, so they would have the same rights as humans. Okay, in the same way, people with dementia who don't have perfect memory usually have someone hold their property in trust. Generally, there's certain legal methods for disabled people. A AI that cannot learn any new thing. The point of rights there, I don't know what the point is. They would be able to own whatever property that they can remember, but other than that, yeah, they wouldn't be able to own property they don't even know exists.
What I was trying to point out there, ethically, they would probably both have rights. Well, like an AI would have rights and a person would have rights. But when it comes to like a legal sense of trying to define these rights, your definition of what would include what would make an AI have rights would also exclude certain humans from being able to have basic rights.
No, we would not exclude any humans. I said before that someone living in a cave would have the same rights as anyone living outside the cave. They would be able to own any property that anyone outside the cave could own.
So is it or is it not the ability to learn things in the future? Because again,
yes.
it would be
Yes.
when
you
it comes to making laws, it tends to be, obviously there are like certain things that are excluded from this, but it tends to be like the possibility of this or a foreseeable future. That's why I mentioned that. So is there a foreseeable future? And for example, for someone who has been imprisoned for 10 years illegally, there is genuinely not a foreseeable future of them learning new things of the outside world. So
of the
by
outside
that
world, no.
sense,
They would not. They would not.
wait, by that sense, if learning new things is the standard, you would have humans that are cut out from that.
No, so they would, if they went outside the world, then they would have those rights. And if they don't go outside the world, then they would still have the potential to have those rights, but they wouldn't use them. So these rights would exist, but would be unused. They wouldn't not exist. The rights existing but unused aren't the same as not having rights. In the context of AI, they would not have the potential to have rights since they do not have the potential to learn things.
But they do. All like in terms of AI, right? Let's go back to ChatGPT because that's what we were talking about
You
as
said
the
for 2
AI.
years memory.
Wait,
You
wait,
said,
wait, 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 wait. So ChatGPT takes in from the last like 2 years or something like that. They have the potential to take in more. You
Okay,
just have
then
to
yes,
turn
they have
off
the
the
same
lock on it.
Okay,
It's
yes, and they would have the same rights as humans. You were specifically brought up something with only a 2 year time reign. So if they had the potential to learn more than that 2 years, then they would have the same rights as humans.
What I'm trying to come back to is that all of the stances you're taking that would make AI and humans different here would end up, if you were going to be hardline with it, would end up excluding humans and including AIs to some extent.
Okay, which human and which AI? I said that any AI that can learn new things in the future would have the same rights as humans.
So every AI.
Yes, and any AI that can take in new information to at the same extent humans can have would have the same rights as humans. Yes, I said this like a million times, and you used the example of 2 year memory, which I gave said would not have the same rights because they would not be able to learn. So yes,
So currently almost every AI, like publicly available AI, has about a 2 year memory. Sometimes they're like slightly off, but they pretty much all have a 2 year memory. Theoretically, yes, because humans could simply turn off the limit. So right now, what humans have done? Wait. Let me finish explaining to make sure you fully understand it. What humans have currently done is said you take, let's say for example, 2019 to 2021. This is your knowledge. All it would take for them to quote unquote learn more is for the humans to say 2019 plus or all time of human history. So that possibility is continuously there. It is just under human control.
Then why haven't they given AI free will?
Because no fucking human wants to, because then you have this conversation that we're having right now.
Yeah, as soon as we turn off that limit and give that AI free will, then yes, it has the same rights as humans.
So what about, let's say theoretics, because I want to go back to this just to like test your ethics. Let's say that a AI has all of human history in their knowledge base up until yesterday. Should they have rights? Because it's still it is still available for them to learn things in the future.
They'd have rights. So yeah, whatever to the extent. Now, if they can't learn new information, they won't gain any more rights in the future. So they couldn't own property in the future. They couldn't vote in the future. They couldn't give. They wouldn't have those rights. But yes, whatever memories in the past that they can remember, they would have rights and authority over. Same thing would apply to 2 year AI. So you get rights.
Wait. So let's say it was up to today. They would have rights to own property and such today, but tomorrow they wouldn't? Is that what you're saying?
They wouldn't be able to gain new property.
If they were created, aka born yesterday, they could only buy property on the day that they are born.
Yes, they could own all the property on Earth because they would have known all the property on Earth. But if someone creates a new property, they could not own that.
So if they were born yesterday, they could go like in the future buy like fucking the Trump Hotel because it existed when they were born.
I mean, where they get the money for that? I don't know, but yes.
Okay, so then they wouldn't actually like lose the right to buy property in the future. It'd just be like new property that they didn't know existed. They would not be able to buy.
Know exists because the ability to gain new information is what gives you the rights to to interact with the world. So your information, if you can't learn about something new, you can't agree into any new contracts with concepts you don't know.
But that's exactly what I'm pointing out is that, so let's take Trump Hotel, for example. 5 years ago existed. Could an AI buy a Trump Hotel 20 years from now?
Yes, because if it still exists, then yes.
So all property, let's take at least like in the United States, for example, all property exists. So an AI would have the right to buy all property in the United States 20 years from
Yes,
now.
any non-new property they would be able to own. Yes.
There's no such thing as new property, really, though.
Well, if someone creates a new invention or builds something new, then yes, they would not be able to own that. So if there's a completely new house with that is made, they would not be able to own that since they would not understand.
No,
what
the
that new
house doesn't matter. It's the land. The land property already existed.
Okay,
That's
yes,
what I'm
if
trying
we-
to point out is that the land property already exists
I don't think.
and will
Okay.
exist forever. So they should have the right to own all property because property is land.
No, for instance, if there's an empty piece of grass and there's a new house built on there, they would not be able to own that house since they would not be able to know what that house is.
But would they be able to own the grass
Yes.
that the house
But-
sits on? And thus, because that is how our property works, you own it fucking sky limit
They could own the
to
grass, but they wouldn't
bedrock.
own the house. So I guess theoretically, but since they wouldn't have a property right to the house, then no.
So what? They could have all the land around the house and just not the house,
Yes.
and then have all the land under and above the house, and the air within the house because that is part of the property.
Yeah, I mean, whether or not we allow people to have property rights over grass and air is pretty subjective. So
No,
could
that
say
is
that,
exactly what property is. Property is, think of a chunk in Minecraft, right? For example, it goes bedrock to air height max limit. That is what buying property is.
okay, before we
Right.
continue, so what's your disagreement with me? What is the only disagreement you have?
I'm not even necessarily saying I disagree. I'm trying to make sure that you know your own ethics. Because I disagree with your stance on future knowledge being the
Okay,
baseline
if
for
someone
this, because
doesn't know
future
what
knowledge
con-
doesn't actually play out to work.
If there's
No,
a new contract that's being signed, if someone doesn't know what that new contract is because they can't learn it, how would they consensually agree to it?
So then, by that, they wouldn't be able to buy any land, even pre-existing land, because it would all be new contracts. So do they have the ability to buy land or no?
No, because if they know what the existing land, they'd understand the terms of the contract.
No, because any contract would be signed. For example, every contract has a date. If the date is past that of when the AI is created, even the second of the date is past that of when the AI is created, by your standard, they wouldn't know that that date exists, so they couldn't sign the contract. So they would have
Yeah.
absolutely no rights.
They wouldn't have the ability to contract in the future, yes.
And you could say the same thing for humans.
No, you couldn't. Us
Humans who
would-
are in captivity, yes.
Why?
Because they have if they are not taught the knowledge of how dates work, for example, of how the future works, then in the foreseeable future, they will also not be taught that. So they would also not have those rights. This is a very philosophical argument that I'm making, but it is still consistent with the
You're using
argument
a lot
that
of
you are
bullshit
making.
and semantics. That's not how philosophers actually approach ethics.
It's not semantics, it's realistic, right? It
No, so
is merging.
someone
It's
is saying
wait.
they would be able to
It,
contract
wait,
however they
wait
want.
a
If
second.
they don't
Wait a
understand the
second.
concept of a contract, then they would not contract. So they would have the right. There would be no purpose for it, though.
If they don't understand it, then they don't have the ability to sign. That's again. So what I was saying was that I am merging philosophical and legal elements here. If you do not have the knowledge of the contract, you cannot sign the contract.
Yes.
But that standard would also apply to humans who are illegally imprisoned. If they do not have the knowledge
Yes.
of
Yeah.
what
So
a
until they
contract
learn what a
is, do
contract
they
is,
then
would
not have
be
the
able to legally
right to
contract.
own property?
Yes. Until they learn what a contract is, they would not be allowed to legally contract. Yes.
And how would you plan on legislating that? Do you think there's any way to legislate that?
Yes. So anybody in captivity doesn't know what a contract is, and for them to contract in the future, would have to get out, learn what the basic language of the area is, and then they can then learn the terms of a contract.
They just have
For
to
them,
learn the language to understand a contract.
yes, they have to understand the language and terms of the contract.
They have to learn the language, or they have to understand the contract. Those are two very different things.
They would have to learn the language and learn the terms of the contract. I'm not going to say it again.
So they would have to understand the terms of the contract, is what you're saying.
Yes.
So again, we go back. This is continuously circular, because plenty of people buy land or sign contracts that they don't understand the terms of. You can look at tenants who get mad when they realize the terms of the contract 6 months after they've signed it, and that they are liable for something.
Yes, but if they understand what the contract is, what the concept of a contract is, and they voluntarily take the risk and they put out that. Same as someone gambles, they'll understand if they're going to win or lose, but they would still have the ability to gamble.
And AI has the ability to understand the concept of a contract. They don't have
But
the
yes,
ability.
they would have the ability. Yes, they would have the ability to contract out.
Yeah, so an AI created now that has no knowledge of the future would have the ability to contract out because they understand the concepts. They would be able to understand the concepts, not the individual terms.
Yes, and everything I've set up to now would lead to that conclusion. Sorry if you misunderstood me.
No, because you said an AI that is created right now would not be able to sign a contract in the future if it does not have the ability
I know
to know
because
the
of the
future.
way you're phrasing it, but yeah, I guess you
The
can
way
say-
that I'm phrasing it just shows you your own contradiction. That is what I've
I
been
have
trying
no
to point out this
contradiction.
entire
I
time.
would have had the same philosophical stance. You phrased it wrong, but now we agree. So if they can understand the concept of something, they would be able to consent to that concept, and therefore they would be able to sign that contract. So yes, that is
Okay.
what rights are.
Okay. ChatGPT can sign a contract in 20 years, even if it hasn't learned anything new. Yes or no?
I would imagine they know what a contract is. Like, I would imagine they would know what
Okay.
a contract.
Thank you. That is the point that I've been trying to make this entire time. You guys had so much fucking fun with those sound alerts, didn't you? During that little period of time. So, chatbot has human rights. This is my issue with having the conversation surrounding ethics of AI, is that consistency never exists.